Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Turning Readers into Writers with me, your host, Emma Dhesi, book coach, especially for you if you are a debut novelist. It's my aim to help you write your book, finish your book, write it, publish it, get it into the world, and fulfill that dream that you've always had or you may have put off for a long, long time. But now you're ready to step into those shoes and claim something for yourself. And I really want to help you do that. But today we're going to be talking about theme. This is something that when I first started writing, I heard a lot about it. I read a lot of articles about what theme is in a novel. But it felt very abstract to me, I have to admit. I couldn't really understand what people were talking about. And I'm glad to know that I'm actually not alone in that. I've heard from other writers who found that concept quite confusing and couldn't quite get a tangible grasp on it. And one of those people being Claire Taylor. She's just written a book called Reclaim Your Author Career. And it's wonderful. I really enjoy it. It's about using the Enneagram to build your writing strategy, how you want to, how writing is going to play a part of your life, how you can learn to celebrate your career, and the best ways for you to work based on your Enneagram. And if you know me, you know I love personality types and quizzes. So I'm always taking them, and I love how there are generalities around us, that there are sort of archetypes under which we work and function best, and learning about those have definitely helped me to understand what motivates me, what turns me off, and how to get the best out of myself. So I was absolutely delighted when she said that she had trouble understanding it. And she was saying that even though it was talked about at school or at college, she said, she nodded along, but she didn't really know what they were talking about. And the other thing is, Taylor says, her different professors would talk about theme in different ways. And so that made it more confusing for her. And that may well have been where I was getting the confusion from as well. So back in those early days when I was first writing, and because I didn't really understand what people were talking about when they said the word theme, all too soon I just stopped reading those blog posts and articles, and I kind of switched off from any conversations about it. It drifted over the top of my head, and I have to admit, if there was one chapter in a craft book I ignored, it was that one. I skipped on to the next one, and it took me a long time really to understand that what theme was and try and get a grasp on it. And it wasn't until one of my mentors, Jay Thorne, described it as, we asked the question, well, what is it that you were trying to say about life with this story? And that for me is when the penny dropped. So really, your theme is what your story is about. What is it that you're trying to say about life with this story? Because every story is about something, whether it be standing up to oppression or finding out where your strengths lie. So it could be something like, as cliched as blood is thicker than water, or if we're not careful, technology will be the master of us. And that seems quite relevant now with this kind of new surge in AI and robotics and everything kind of really beginning to take shape, and debates in the press about whether computers can have a conscience or not. So every story is really about something, and it can take time to find, or it can take time for a newer author to really understand that concept and be able to nail it down. So how can you find your theme, and also why does it matter so much? So one of the easiest ways of unblocking your novel's theme is to think back on the moment the story idea came to you. You might think that it came to you in a flash of inspiration, but it's probably unlikely. I have to admit, it's more likely that it came to you in drips and drabs, and then suddenly everything came together and you had this light bulb moment, and that's when you said to yourself, "Ooh, okay, this could be the story. I think I could write about this." So this is particularly easy, I would say, or easier, I would say, for first-time novels. And the reason I think this is easier for first-time novels is because most first-time books have a very strong autobiographical element to them. Something has happened in the author's life, or the life of their children or spouse or sister, that's left an indelible impression on the author, and they want to explore it through their fiction. I've yet to meet an author, I have to admit, whose first novel particularly wasn't directly related to something they've experienced or someone they're close to has experienced. So what you can do is think back on your own experiences. What has happened to you or a loved one or someone you know that has compelled you to write this story? What was it that about whatever the sort of autobiographical element, what was it about that compelled you to write about it? And so that leads you kind of on to that second question, really, which is, well, why does that story stick with you? You know, you're a writer. You undoubtedly have 100 ideas a day for different stories, but there will be a reason that this particular idea has stuck. It's stuck so much to the point that you are seriously considering, or you are doing, spending the next months of your life, possibly the next years of your life, writing, rewriting, revising, and then ultimately publishing your book. So the question is why? Why does this story stick with you so much that you're willing to invest all of this time, this energy, this thought into it? Why does the story appeal to you so strongly that you're willing to do that? And it's in that question, in delving into that, that's where you start to uncover the theme of your book. I promise you, it's not an arbitrary thing. And so why this is important is because that theme, that message, what it is you're trying to say about life, that is what guides your protagonist's character arc. That is their guide. So that internal arc, that emotional arc, that is the theme of the story. That's what guides the plot line, in fact. And it's why I often say that your character and their journey is more important than the plot. Because if your character has depth, and if there is a theme to it, and you are trying to say something about life in general, but through the eyes of your protagonist, your reader is going to connect with that. They're really, really going to connect with it in a way that they wouldn't be able to explain, but they will connect with it and they will follow your character anywhere, because as long as they're feeling that emotional pull for the character and what they're going through and what they're trying to overcome, on an emotional level, not just on an action point level, on an emotional level, they'll follow your character anywhere. You know, the plot line really does become secondary at that point. So just going back to Claire Taylor for a moment, this is what she says about theme. She says, "The story wants you to read it. It is your story. There was a reason that story came into your head. Claiming that the story is in control and you can't tell it what theme to have isn't relishing the experience of storytelling, it's abdicating responsibility." Ooh, tough words, hey? Tough words. But I sort of agree with her. That said, I do think when you're writing your first novel, the biggest challenge is simply piecing those pieces together, working out the puzzle at face value. And that usually means plot. That certainly was the case for me. I was very, very concerned about plot and making sure that I got that correct. But I think once you've written a few books, a few manuscripts, a few drafts, and then you're feeling more comfortable with the process of how you write, how long it takes you, what the feelings are, just the kind of, because you've practiced it a few times, and you're feeling more sure-footed with it, then you can start taking a deeper dive into the layers of character building and, of course, that all-important theme of your novel. At least I'm going to say, that's how it was for me, and I'm sure that I'm not alone in that. Okay, so say you are at the point where you are feeling ready to start delving into theme and getting into those deeper layers of your character. So when do you need to have that theme worked out? In an ideal world, you'd have it worked out before you even start the novel, before you even start writing. Jenny Nash, Lisa Cron, these are all people who say, you've got to have it worked out ahead of time. And I can see the logic in that, absolutely, I can. However, my experience of novel writing is it's not that straightforward. It's not such a clear-cut process. It's not been my experience, and it's not been the experience of my clients who are also, who are first-time novelists. Instead, what I've discovered is that it usually takes writing the first draft of the novel to really understand what it is that you're trying to say in the story and about life, especially for pantsers who are just delve straight into the story, get that idea and delve straight in. We pantsers, we want to see where the story's going to take us. And yes, this does mean that there's a lot more writing on the back end, but this is nothing new for pantsers. It's part of our process. So my own experience of this has been that it's only when I go back into round 2 of revisions that I really begin to understand the shape of my story and what it is and what I'm saying about life in general, about society, about a person, an individual's life with my story. So don't be surprised if you find that that's the same for you as well. Okay, so have a dig deep into where that story idea came from, why it stuck with you, why it's so important to you, and see if you can't kind of uncover what it is that you think that your character is trying to discover about themselves, and about their life, or life more broadly, with the journey that they're going to go on. You might not come up with it just yet. It would be lovely if, like Jenny Nash and Lisa Cron say, you have it all worked out ahead of time. But for you, it might not happen in the first book. It might not even happen in the second book. It might be that this happens in the third book. So I want to give you an example. The book that I'm writing at the moment, which all being well will be out later this year, the theme of that book, what I'm trying to say about life with that book is that, it's gone out of my head. What is it I'm trying to say about, so my character, she wants to be able to bail herself out. That's what she's sort of, as an adult, you've got to be able to bail yourself out, and can't always rely on parents to be there for you. So this was a big part of her journey. So early in the story, she has relied on her parents to kind of help her out at different times in her life and bail her out when she gets into trouble. But by the end of the story, she's got herself out of a particularly big fix, the biggest trouble she's been in her life. She's had to kind of dig deep within herself and be independent and do it for herself, and then kind of change ultimately through this, because she's proved to herself and to the others around her that she's not the baby of the family. She's not this incapable person who once was. But it's that fighting for her independence, fighting to be seen as an adult, fighting to bail herself out of difficult situations throughout the bulk of the book, that's what prompts her to make the decisions she makes, to do the things that she does. Because she's always trying to kind of rally against being seen as the baby of the family, and that others think that she's incompetent, and she always makes bad decisions. So I hope that kind of gives a good example of, whatever the theme is, that is them kind of pushing against something or working towards something that ultimately they prove by the end of it. So the next book that I'm working on, the theme of that one is I write domestic psychological thrillers, so there's always a domestic theme to it. And basically the theme of this one is you're never ready to be a parent. This is something that everybody experiences. Well, everybody who becomes a parent, you're never ready for it. It doesn't matter how much reading you've done around the topic, how much talking to other people you've had. When that baby arrives, nothing really has prepared you for it. And so my character is trying to have all of her ducks in a row before she even contemplates this. And there's a bit of her that's kind of fighting against having a family because she because none of her ducks are in a row. She feels that her life is chaotic. So she's constantly trying to make everything be perfect before she and her husband go down this route of having a family. But in doing so, she's making more trouble for herself, because life is never perfect. There will never be the absolute right time. There's always something coming up when you least expect it. And so this is what she's got to sort of confront in herself, that if she's going to do it, she's just got to jump in and do it and be prepared for whatever comes next. So my themes are all very domestic because that's the stories that I write. But your themes might be bigger than that. You might be writing stories that are to do with the environment. That's a really, really hot topic right now. Maybe your topics are to do with poverty. Again, another big hot topic right now. Or some other, you might be about technology. That again is something that a lot of people are interested in. So yours might be will be more global, will be larger in scale. But what is it you're trying to say about poverty, about the environment, about technology that your character is either fighting for or rallying against, but ultimately will prove the theme that you were trying to say, what it is you're trying to sort of say about life. So you might be saying that if we're not careful, technology is going to take over, but your character doesn't believe that at the beginning of the story. They think it's all fan-dabby-dozy and nothing can possibly go wrong, and they're just enjoying it and really loving what can come out of the technological world. But as they get deeper and deeper involved into it, and perhaps more and more, let's think newer and newer inventions, they begin to see that technology is taking over, and that programmer, engineer, whoever he or she is, they're less and less in control until finally they realize, proving your point that if we're not careful, technology will take over our lives. So there's a lot of fun to be had in there, and it really gives you the opportunity to get a bit deeper with your story. Now you might be thinking, oh, but I write romance, or I write thriller, or police procedural, those are fairly surface stories, or I don't need to think about those types of deeper issues. The issues don't need to be terribly, terribly deep, but there does need to be something there. So if we're thinking about romance, for example, what's happened to your character in the past? What have their relationship experiences been in their past, and what's that taught them about being in a relationship? Has it taught them that it's good, or has it taught them that there's something to be wary of? Ideally, for the purposes of fiction, we maybe want there to be something to be wary of, so that there's a bit of conflict there and they've got something to fight against. If it's a thriller, then maybe you're detective, or you're the person who is trying to stay out of the killer's way. They're learning something about themselves. They're learning a more psychological based lesson that's to be had. So there's an every level, from pure genre fiction all the way to the most abstract literary fiction. There is a message in there for your reader, and I encourage you to start delving into it if you haven't done already, because it's only going to enhance your storytelling. It's only going to enhance your character portrayal, and really connect that character to your reader all that more closely. So give it some thought, but if, like I was, you're writing your first book or two and you're not quite feeling ready to go down that avenue just yet, then don't, hold off until you feel more comfortable with your writing process, and then you can start digging a little bit deeper. Because remember, this is a journey. I'd say none of us are overnight successes. There's always a lot of work that goes into learning to be a writer before that person has their overnight success and their big hit. So give yourself some grace, but have a think about it. Maybe you're a bit more of a deeper thinker than me, and yes, you're writing your first book, but there's a very clear theme that you want to involve in your book. All right, I will leave it for there, my lovelies. Now listen, don't forget, if you haven't subscribed, please do. If you do like what I am putting out each week, please do go and leave a rating or a review. It will really help me with the old algorithms, and hopefully help me find new first-time novelists who are just needing that little bit of support to get them through the writing process and get their book into the world. All right, take care for now, and I'll see you soon. Bye.